Guys, so let's get into the spoiler part of the review. So if you haven't seen the non-spoiler part of our review and want to get some opinions on this film, get in there because now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
That's for the YouTube people, by the way.
Oh,
for the people that are listening on the podcast. He's like, well, of course I'm here.
I just heard that. What are you talking about, sir?
Such a weird thing to say in the middle of...
So where do we want to kick off with the spoilers, fellas?
Were you guys as shocked as I was that Mystique died?
Oh my God.
Mind blown. Wait, no, it was in the trailer.
Well, why don't we talk about Mystique for a little bit? I thought that, and this kind of centers around the main conflict, which was this kind of rests on the shoulders of Charles, really, in this film. He's kind of not the bad guy, but that's where the friction and the conflict is meant to be. I didn't quite... I don't know that I was completely convinced by that. It just felt like one of those things that they were putting it in the plot and here you go, here's your thing. I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't quite as seamlessly brought into the plot as I would hope.
Wait. So what are you referring to here? Are you referring to what happened with Jean Grey?
That initial kind of tension between Charles and Mystique. I think that to me didn't quite hit the mark. What did hit the mark for me was her interaction with Hank. I think that was really well done. I enjoyed that pairing. I think that they played off each other really well.
That was one of the few parts of the film that felt like it was following films that had come before. They were actually talking about stuff that had happened. They even say First Class.
And not in a way that would have confused people. I think that if you hadn't seen or you couldn't remember, that was pretty clear what was happening. And I think they both sold it really well.
What I will say for the Mystique Charles little conversation, which they released online a few days ago, actually, so I saw it then and thought it was a little silly. And then watching it again tonight, I like this world that they've set up in this film that we have not seen before in these movies, where the X-Men are heroes. They're kind of venerated. Yeah. Mutants are in a much better place in society than we've ever seen. And I like the kind of exploration of what that would do to Charles Xavier, this guy who, is used to being a martyr. Like, I like him being this kind of like focused on the PR and like kind of keep it going at what cost. I thought, I don't know if the way Mystique calls him out on it exactly lands, but I did like the way they were
concept.
Going. Yeah.
Like there's a lot of concepts in this movie that I really enjoy. Like I know what they were going for, and I agree that that's what they should have gone for. It's more kind of just how they brought it up and how they put it in front of me. And that kind of felt a little bit like there was a lot of explaining in this film instead of showing. And that's kind of, we mentioned this in the non-spoiler part about it feeling a little bit clunky with the dialogue. And sometimes I felt that was due to the fact that they were trying to tell the audience what was happening. And I was like, well, most audience members can just kind of figure it out. Like, show, don't tell.
Yeah, no, I think that the arrogance of the character was interesting as well.
Yeah.
I thought that, especially at the beginning, Mystique in the jet up in space saying, listen, we got to pull out, man. Like, we're done here. And Charles is like, we leave no man behind.
Yeah.
And he's not even there.
Yeah,
the
he's president's watching.
So there was this really interesting layer to this character that we've never seen before. And combined with, as you said, Benny, where these guys are more, there's less sort of societal conflict in this film, and there's more like Marvel superhero stuff, which at the start I was kind of like, where am I sitting on that? And I fell into the, like, I like this because that's not normally what I like to see in the X-Men on the big screen. But then all these other elements came in with the Charles Xavier character, and whilst it wasn't totally finessed, all that stuff with the control he has of these people, and like this thing that he's got, this school is kind of like this freight train that's going, and he has to keep laying the tracks in front of it because it can't not derail. Yeah. It's like his life's work.
I love the element of his performance where every time he's talking to these people, it's a speech, which even gets called out later on.
Yeah.
Like, he really is manipulative, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, I feel like he is that character in the other movies, but for great reasons and a good cause. But in this one, it's kind of going in a weird direction.
It's just framed in a different
he's
way.
He's made a mistake. And
Well, I think it's also in the other ones, it's hard not to look at him as being this kind of righteous character. Like his objection is violence, and he wants what's best, and it's very clear that he wants what's best for his people and all that. Whereas this one, I think it's a little bit more nuanced in the sense that he's like, he even says it in the movie, like, we are one bad incident away from this all going away, and I'm trying to keep this going. And I think that they should have explored that aspect a little bit more. The kind of his conflicted nature. Like, I didn't quite get the nuances of that as much put across on like the execution side. Again, like, I really like the concept of it, but I wanted to explore it a little bit more.
So building off from that, we have him doing something similar to in X3 when he finds Jean Grey as a child and then kind of walls up her mind to protect her, but they completely twist it with the death of her parents, or so we believe at the beginning, where he's hiding that from her because that can make her dangerous, which is, of course, there is a real debate you could have around what he did, which I think is interesting. And then that leads into Jean, once she gets all this power from the Phoenix Force, becoming extremely dangerous and violent. And I really like the way, and this is different than how it's been done before, I think, of just having the Phoenix, her as the Phoenix, being like her trauma manifested.
Totally.
Yeah.
Rather than just this cosmic entity that's fucking with her.
Rather than just the kind of sassy bad bitch she was in X3 with the black eyes for just no reason.
Yeah, man. I truly, truly loved it. And I loved the scenes going when she went back to her father's house.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well executed. And Sophie Turner conveyed the angst and conveyed the anger and the disappointment.
Yeah.
And to have all these people around her that, she trusted or she loved, and everyone betrayed her. Everyone, like they did have her back in a way, but they didn't as well.
Did you really feel as though that, for me, it didn't quite feel, again, it didn't feel nuanced as
what do you mean by that, though? When you say nuanced, like, what did you want more of?
Allow me to be more vague. I'll give you an example of,
like, did
of
you
what
want
I
more
mean
scenes? Did you want more dialogue?
I'm not sure what it was. I can't really put my finger on it. It's really bothering me, actually, because I just feel like I said before, there's some motivations that didn't make sense to me, and a specific example of that is, for example, how quickly the X-Men just decided to attack her. Like in that scene where she went to her father's house, they were just like straight up, oh, let's like blast her with some lightning. I thought, that is fucking bizarre.
Yeah, watching it the second time, I'm like, fuck it, Nightcrawler, if you just let her fly away, none of this would have happened.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the point? Like, why are you doing this?
That being said, I love that action scene.
I mean,
especially
it is cool.
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
Finally.
I love that bit.
Finally.
Yeah,
we didn't get the same old Quicksilver scene. Like, it was
Yeah.
kind of
cut that shit short.
Something
mixed
different.
up.
And I thought it was really cool showing the consequences of what happens, like
If
at the
he-
speed he's
yeah.
traveling. If he fucks up, he totaled himself for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he was
But
out.
again, the reason that they did that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, they just thought, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna just light her up.
I think there is a little bit of an escalation to it. Like, it starts
I
off.
mean,
It's
pretty intense.
She tries to
Like-
get away after doing some really bad shit. Nightcrawler tries to just bring her back, and then things start getting a bit worse. But yeah, I take your point.
Yeah, and
I don't know if I do
there
take
was-
your point. I think like
I reject your point.
I get
I've
your point
convinced
to a
one, I just need
degree,
to-
but it's
Georgie,
like,
I say I take his point. I do that to shut him up.
no, I'm not fucking going down that path. I'm not bitching out this time,
honestly,
Benny.
they went there with like the full X-Men team in there, like that
Because
right
they
off
knew
the bat.
because they knew how powerful she could potentially be.
But doesn't that mean that they should take a more peaceful route? Like, they should have known that,
I think it feels like another miscalculation on Charles's part. in a way.
And Charles
It does
and,
in a way,
and
yeah.
I think they actually address that because he goes, "Listen to me." Like, he says something like, "Listen to me," and she's like, "Nah, dude, fuck you." Like, I felt like they kind of lent into that in the story or in the
and
in the narrative, the script.
A few times in the movie, they have him kind of puppeteer people, shut him down,
Yeah.
like his X-Men and other people, and I like that showing that side of him because it makes you question, like, how much does this dude really use those powers?
yeah,
of
like
his?
how much does he really control, and
Yeah.
how much is it like him directly influencing, and how much of it is manipulation?
Yeah, like it's all well and good when everyone's agreeing with him, but
Yeah.
then the second things go south, he's like, fuck this.
So I would have traded an action scene for more of that conflict, more like kind of her calling Charles out, being like, "You're just a manipulator. You're just like,
Yeah.
to call it's a strange comparison, but I feel like if for those that are familiar with this little known franchise called Harry Potter, there's a climactic kind of reveal towards the end, which is that this beloved character Dumbledore is in fact a manipulator. And that for a lot, like that's a really big moment where people realize that there's a line in that where he's just a lamb to the slaughter to you type thing, and I think that was conveyed really well because they had built this character up and then with a swift moment they like cut him off at the knees. Whereas this one, it didn't. I didn't get that moment. I didn't really feel betrayed by Charles. I was just kind of like, this seems like an overreaction. It seems like a really drastic escalation on their part. And the consequence of that for me was that I just didn't really engage with the scene. As you said, cool action scene, but nothing really to it. Like I would have rather had more of an exploration between them two than having an action scene there.
Yeah, no, I think I would have liked to have seen more for sure. And what I love about X-Men and like the Magneto character through Ian McKellen and Fassbender is the complexity with that character. Like you love him, but he's a bad guy as well, but he has good parts to him. And I thought that every film up until now, within reason, maybe there's a few scenes that I've missed, but Professor X is like the beacon of light. He's the beacon of hope. And this one, they brought in that dichotomy to him that was similar to Magneto. And I wanted to see more of Magneto's dichotomy. I wanted to see them play off of each other even more. Because there was something there.
In Days of Future Past?
In
seeing a broken Charles?
Not a broken Charles, a complex character with two distinct sides, and I would have liked to have seen more of that revealed.
Yeah,
because he's just broken. He's still he's a man who's given up in that one. In Future Past, in this one, he's dead. He's the antithesis of given up. Like things are going. It's just like what measures does he use to keep it going?
Yeah,
that's what I want to see more of.
I agree with that. I think that's there's something I would have liked to have seen, explored a little bit more. And I think that's where there should have been a little bit more focus.
Yeah, I love the setup, and I love even just the little they do with it. They don't follow up on it in the back half.
And I mean, there's a couple of other examples. I feel like I'm just going to be the one that's nitpicking.
I mean, it's just another review.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got plenty of real nitty little picks later. Don't worry.
But I just, in terms of like her conversation with Magneto, I think had really good potential. Like I like her going to him, and like you can tell that she wants to change. She wants to, be better. And then I thought, oh, this is really cool. This is setting up to be a very interesting conversation, and which, culminated in him saying, I stopped. How did you do it? Well, I stopped. That was his explanation. And you're like, okay, cool. I'm glad that we just spent the last 5 minutes in this conversation.
Yeah, I buy that.
Yeah,
that could have been more interesting.
Yeah, I get that.
It just felt very like, oh, come on, give me something that I can really like.
Yeah,
grab onto and
I like that conversation. Otherwise, I really love how he just keeps asking her, "Whose blood is that?"
Yeah,
like, it's like he knows.
He keeps dropping that in.
And then the army show up and she just starts attacking again.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why is she doing that? Like,
Exactly.
That wasn't. There wasn't enough there for me. I don't mind the other one so much, but to that it's like, well, now I'm not sure what she's doing.
That's where the film kind of started to lose me was after when she went to Magneto.
Though cool that we finally got a big screen version of Genosha, Magneto's little sovereign state.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I love that concept. I love the
village.
idea that he's got his own little island.
I love the idea that he killed JFK and then killed millions of people in the last film.
Yeah.
And then the US government is just like, just take it.
Yeah.
Please don't hurt anyone anymore.
Stop
It's like, okay.
fucking with us.
I won't. I on that note, just quickly, little segue. I love how this movie completely ignores Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Except for Storm's white hair and Storm, I guess, and Charles not having hair. You could skip everything from that last movie.
But I mean, like after just watching Apocalypse, this almost makes Apocalypse better because you do get the introduction of Cyborg, Jean Grey as younger. But it's
I don't think you need it, though. I don't think you need it, though.
It's
I don't think you even need it because they're just younger versions of characters we've already seen.
Yeah.
Like if you take this as a
fair
prequel,
enough.
you can just be like, yeah, they're just here. We know these characters
Fair
already.
enough.
So I really appreciated that.
Something that we've kind of skipped over, and I was planning on getting to it, but we got derailed by that, action scene at the Jean Grey's house, which is the death of Mystique.
Yeah, that's what we kicked off.
Yeah. So that's what we were meant to talk about.
Tangents upon tangents.
How did you guys feel about that?
Solid. Like I felt almost like relief for Jennifer Lawrence. I'm like, you have been released. Like
Putting your hand over her eyes. Sleep now, princess.
The background of the next shot, you see her just signing something.
Listen, I enjoyed her performance in this because it was agonizing. Apocalypse is an agonizing film, but it's just nice. I felt like she gave a little bit more of a fuck in this, and the death scene was solid.
I think given you knew it was coming, I was pretty happy with it.
I didn't feel any emotion.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh, Mystique, damn.
Beast kind of sold it for me.
Beast sold it more than...
That is the saving
the
grace.
sorrow for that character sold it more than the death of Mystique.
Yeah.
I did like, just visually, I liked how fucking brutal it was. Those
spikes
are
going
It just goes down. It's like...
Did
he say... Wait, just quickly, did Beast say she went quick? Or like that it wasn't...
She didn't suffer for too long.
Yeah, I'm like, that's a bad way to go, man. Like, you'd be bleeding out for like... If that was real, you'd be bleeding out for hours, man. Maybe not hours.
Hopefully you'd get medical attention if there were people around for that long. Like,
let's say you're in the forest.
If you somehow... Wait, sorry.
Let's say you're in the forest.
She got several sticks through the gut and you're just like... She'll walk it off.
Her head goes down. They all leave. She's like, no way, no.
I am not saying that at all. I'm saying if that happened to you, you wouldn't like in movies they just die pretty immediately. You would bleed out for a long time, and it would be a lot more brutal. And I just find those things funny.
Anyway,
I nitpicker to the rescue. Here I go. Actually, this is not a nitpick. This is pretty solid.
This is just a pick.
I had the same reaction that you had in terms of I just didn't really feel any emotion from it. And that for me is the big problem. If you're going to kill off a major character, there should be some kind of gut wrench. There should be some kind of emotion like, oh, no, I don't get to see this character in more films. Like when, take any other kind of major character death out of these kinds of franchises, you actually feel bad. And in this one, I was just kind of like, there she goes.
You know what? I thought that if they'd committed to taking out Magneto at the end, that would have been a gut-wrenching scene. Because when she's crushing the helmet, and the way it focuses in on his eye, I was like, oh, I'm feeling something now.
I thought he was pretty gone.
I thought he was done. So that would have been a massive improvement, but they bitched out on that. So I felt like none of the deaths in here was impactful as they should and could have been. And because this is Fox's last film, why didn't they go guns a-blazing?
It kind of felt like they went a bit vanilla with it, didn't they?
It's like, why? Just take him out. Like, this is it. This is your last shot.
So yeah, that for me bothered me. I think the other thing was like and it comes back to the dialogue. What she was saying before Jean pushed her was pretty much every generic "we love you" sentence in the book. She was, and it made me laugh because she was like, "We're your family. We're here for you. I love you. I'm not leaving you."
I'm
like
your
it was
friend.
like one after the other. I'm like, oh come on.
We're basically sisters.
Yeah, I like how even Jean wasn't listening though.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm trying everyone in the book here, Jean. Like, give me something.
So I love the scene with Charles and Hank after the funeral in the kitchen.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought that was brilliant.
You feel it,
Absolutely
don't you?
Brilliant.
Because almost every single one of us has had that experience where you're wrong and someone's calling you out on it. You just don't know what to say. It's really hard to be like, yeah, I'm wrong. Like, sorry. Like, especially when there's something on the line or like when you really fucked up. So I was like, I felt that scene. I was like, oh yeah.
I was more sympathizing with Hank, but sure.
Yeah. You taking out a lot of people like just have done you wrong.
What? No, I haven't fucked up that bad, I guess.
I liked the way the way he was sort of, I don't know, as I said, I got more out of his performance than Jennifer Lawrence's in the death. The sorrow of that character made it more impactful. And I really loved that scene.
And I like how unstated their relationship was. All we've ever seen with them really was there was a bit of flirtation in First Class. And then that nothing was confirmed in this, but you still feel like there's a lot of history there. Or something we don't know about, which is really
I always
cool.
thought it was really funny that they just found the two blue people in the team and they're like, these people should love each other. It's like the most simplistic.
Cut to Nightcrawler watching with the tears.
Could have been me.
I like how there's only blue people. It's so fun.
What about the Jessica Chastain character? Because I thought...
Well, let's start with her introduction scene, because
very
this is
cool.
stuff we did not know anything about going into this. Well, we sort of did, but in terms of how it actually plays out and what we're actually looking at on screen, none of this was in the trailers.
Yeah, very cool. I thought that introduction scene was very.
I was super on board with the whole movie at this point, and that scene absolutely as well. I love the alien invasion. I love these kind of aliens lurking in the woods. You barely see them. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to like it. I thought that part was cool, the shadows appearing, but nothing like these characters and this race really did not do much for me. And I think I would have preferred this film if they'd cut that all out and doubled down on the Jean Grey, Professor X, like keep it to these core characters and let's do the last hurrah. You know, this is the final of 12 films, dude. Don't bring in this whole other race. Like, let's focus this down to the core and let's explore these relationships.
My version of that, and we'll get right back to that, but I had the exact same thinking regarding Magneto. I'm like, this movie would be good if they just kept it the X-Men.
Yeah.
This really insular conflict, you know? Because he feels
tacked
pretty
on.
shoehorned in
Totally.
right in the middle there.
It is fairly classic X-Men, which is like, here's an X-Men problem. Magneto has removed himself, and we're gonna bring him in.
Gonna drag him back in. This
somehow
poor
again.
fucking guy. He's the real victim of this series at this point.
I liked the motivation that he had, which was that one of the loves of his life has died. I thought that was cool, but in terms of just like the same rigmarole of bringing him in.
God, I actually thought you were talking about Apocalypse. These movies are so fucking repetitive. His wife
exactly.
and child died in that movie. Remember he had a wife and child in the last movie?
Fuck, I just watched that movie and I've forgotten that.
Pick a movie. That's exactly what he is away, and we're gonna drag him in. You know, even Days of Future Past. He's in a prison cell. He's removed from the story. Let's shoehorn him back in. And I mean, it works sometimes. It doesn't work as much other times. But it does start to feel a little bit repetitive.
Yeah.
In this one with the villain, look, I kind of liked that the villain character shifted. Jean Grey was obviously it could have gone, that last scene could have gone a lot different. In the trailers, it looked as though, Magneto was talking to and trying to kill, the Phoenix character, Jean Grey. So I liked how they kind of pulled a fast one. I like it when trailers do that. I like it when they kind of give misdirects. But having said that, I thought that the inclusion of Jessica Chastain in this was just a bit meh.
And the something empire.
Well, exactly. And that's the kind of thing, like, there's a lot of exposition that they did in order to justify why they're there. And they kept saying things like, it's whenever one of those characters says something like, let's get this power so we can repopulate our race. Thank you for the 2-sentence exposition scene, but like it makes me feel like we're stopping and starting. Like,
it wasn't belabored, at least. Like, they did not spend any unnecessary time on these bad guys, and I don't think any more time would have helped them much.
No,
I think they could have done less time. Less time with them
out.
actually saying things.
Yeah.
Like that whole scene where she's explaining to Jean what the power is. I'm like, yeah, sort of. But
Yeah, leave it unanswered. And as you said, Ben, I don't think we needed that. The conflict in this was Jean Grey and Professor X. Like, that was the really interesting part of it.
I completely agree, but I guess I'm just kind of trying to justify what we do have. The movie as it is so comic booky. Like, they bring in this nonsense stuff about this alien race and this cosmic power.
Which is at odds with the tone of the rest of the film in a way.
Yes, but I love that they just chuck it in and run with it, because that is what comic books do. This feels like one of the more comic booky movies I've ever seen. And I think it's more cohesive than it could have been, even if it doesn't really, like, the ending certainly is not the best part of the film. And that plot is not great.
No.
What are you specifically referring to?
What's that?
No, I'm asking what are you specifically referring
the
to
alien
with the ending?
Just the ending. Just none of it ties up the rest of the story in any meaningful way, I feel.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like she kills the rest of the bad guys and then
And Professor X sees his wrongdoings, and he kind of goes, I fucked up.
I liked all the action of it.
Yeah.
For a reshot finale, I thought it was pretty decent. I just like the kind of powers showcase. Everyone was kind of doing their thing, helping out.
I thought the first sequence was a lot stronger, like in terms of how the team was working together to use their powers cohesively. Like I loved that first mission sequence. The train
That wasn't really an action scene. That was just like
You wouldn't call it an action scene?
No.
I would call it a very, very short action scene.
I would call it an action scene.
Well, okay, all right, sure.
I mean, he's like
It wasn't.
blasting around a spaceship and stuff, and it's like very tense, and I would call it an action
Okay,
scene.
yeah, that might just be semantics, but go ahead.
It's definitely semantics.
But the last scene with all the aliens and the train and the floating train and then the fireballs, I was just kind of like, I'm not bored. I don't want this to end, and I don't need this to wrap up. But like, I'm sort of going in and out of giving a fuck.
Once again, I liked the basic points of it. Like I liked the idea that this is where they got her to change kind of sides, I suppose. Like this is, there is, and then she fights for them. I like the idea that it kind of comes down to her and Jessica Chastain. Like working with what we've got is what I'm kind of doing at that point. And I liked the actual action scene of it. Like I just
Would you call it an action scene though?
I would. Yes.
Oh, okay, right.
A prolonged
Cool.
action scene.
Sorry. I thought
Not
maybe
as opposed to the original
an
rescue
action-
scene. The rescue scene at the
a
beginning.
rescue scene.
It was a rescue scene.
God.
This one
You're
was
hilarious, bro. You are hilarious.
Don't bring it up and expect me not to say it. Then fine.
I would
That's
be
on
very
you.
interested to see the original version of this ending because,
Well, so
as
let's talk
we
about
all
that a
know,
bit.
it was Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
It was apparently very similar to Captain Marvel, which a lot of this movie is.
Yeah.
But
you
it
know,
didn't feel the same. Like,
no,
maybe in bullet
very
points.
different execution. Yeah, a little points
Like,
of it. Yeah.
oh yeah, they go into space and there's cosmic energy or whatever.
Particularly the ending, which I thought landed with the biggest thud, which is like your emotions make you weak, and they're just like, no, they make me strong. I'm
Yeah.
like, have we been talking about this at any point in this film?
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I'm like, did they reshoot the ending or the entire beginning? Like, where has this been? That was a real
thought,
bummer
like,
for me because I like the
Jessica
other stuff.
Chastain was playing on her emotions the entire time. Like it just, but yeah, I totally agree with you. It just kind of felt like, oh, we got to wrap this thing up now. So say something.
We need a snappy line.
Yeah.
Where someone says a thing and the person says the opposite.
No, I hate that. I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
like
like,
the
come on.
worst. The one of the most egregious things you can do in writing is just say like, "I am this," and then the response
I
is being,
disagree.
"You're not that," and you're like, you're just disagreeing with me. You're not saying anything witty.
Yeah.
You're just disagreeing.
Yeah, but then we got I am. What was it? The final line in Endgame.
I am Iron Man.
I mean,
I am
there's-
Iron Man.
I'm
But
inevitable.
That's not
I'm
him just
inevitable.
saying. No, sorry. That's it. That's
No,
not
hang on,
opposite.
hang on. Can I?
The opposite.
The
The arch nemesis
equivalent-
of Iron Man is
equivalent-
inevitable.
The equivalent of that is not like it would be of him saying "I am inevitable" and Tony Stark saying
I am
"No,
inevitable."
you're not," and then snapping his hands. That would be lame.
I'm inevitable.
That would have been okay. Can I get something off my chest? I don't understand what Tony Stark was trying to convey to Thanos at that point.
He's
Like, what does that mean?
I'm Iron
I
Man.
am Iron Man. He's like,
Bitch.
yeah, no shit. It's like, yeah, whatever.
I'm aware of you.
One too many hits in the head for Tony, I think.
I get it. Yeah.
Let's not make this an Endgame podcast. I apologize for bringing that up. I wish there had been. So what I would have loved to have seen in this film is get rid of the Jessica Chastain crap. Like get rid of all that fuckery, and let's have more of like a resolution wherein there's sort of like there's maybe some kind of forgiveness from Jean Grey, like forgiving Professor X. Like I'm coming
did
up
you
this
miss
off,
that scene?
huh?
Did you miss that scene where she forgives him? Where she just says, "I know what you did was
Yeah,
for
no,
good," and
but-
you're like, "Really? How did you come to this conclusion?"
Yeah, but like
I
that
did
was
miss that.
that was
no.
just when I say that I wanted more, I wanted it to
Yeah.
feel more
No, I'm agreeing
padded
with you.
out.
Like I
We'll
agree
get
with you.
into
Like
it, yeah.
the explanation was literally her saying, "I forgive you," and I was just sitting there and be like, "Really? Like that's just you're okay?"
And
And
also-
the whole the crux of this really is just Charles being like, look into my mind, and her, just reliving events that had happened previously, which to me feels like a bit of an easy out for them because it's not as if those are like things that she's experienced. So it's not like she doesn't know that he cares. Why is that what really convinces her? Like to
I
me,
kind
that
of
felt a
like
bit-
that in that they kept things kind of not black and white. Like he did some things that in the context initially were terrible, and
Yeah.
then
Again, in concept,
looking in a new light, which they kind of do through the end.
But what's the new light? What's the new what is her
It's
character
the
development?
one
What does
scene.
she learn?
It's the one scene where she sees him talking to her father, which she was never present for, which
Yeah.
I thought was like a good addition to what we'd already seen in that scene.
Yeah.
The stuff she already
So
knew.
you think it's basically him saying, it's I didn't take you away because you were a danger to them. I took you away because I had hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of get on board with that.
And I would have liked to have seen a bit more of self-examination from Professor X. Like, I would have liked him sort of delve into his soul and like, see, what am I
not
actually
just say
trying to
I'm
do? What am I trying to do here?
Yeah.
Whether that's within dialogue with maybe Magneto, maybe a scene with Magneto where they meet up and they're having a coffee and they're playing
Hello, old
chess.
friend.
Yeah,
Looks like you're the one who fucked up this time.
I just think that part of that really brought down the film quite significantly for me.
What
Jessica Chastain and all
Yeah.
the aliens, and there was so much good stuff. Like, get rid of it.
I guess I thought the introduction to that stuff was so strong that I was able to
Just
sail through the rest of
Yeah.
it.
Snowballed.
And it is a nice point of difference from X3 because there's nothing like that in there.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say that is in favor of the Jessica Chastain character, which is that it gave Jean Grey an out for this kind of self-sacrifice moment, which I think is I'm not sure how she would have done that otherwise. They could have probably found a good avenue, but this gave her a good opportunity to like, I'm going to take them up to space and blow up type of thing. I think they could have done some things around that, but that concept I think is as good as. That's an advantage of having Jessica Chastain there.
Okay, can I just say how much I hated the fact when you went to the exposition scene and with the Phoenix and they're flying around and then she's like, yeah, when you were up in space, yeah, we've been tracking that and our ship was about 20 meters behind yours.
No one noticed.
Like nobody
the alien
noticed,
ship.
don't, like
Cloaking device.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
So,
Skrulls.
yeah, well,
Pretty much,
I
yeah.
removed that negative because
Yeah,
you
I
resolved
withdraw
that
my
for me.
comment.
Stricken from the record.
Uh,
The ending is just X2. It is straight up X2, which is Jean Grey sacrifices herself, and then the Phoenix is like,
Yeah.
I honestly, as it was panning up at the end, like, okay, so for a final scene of those two characters, that is such a shit scene. I
Really?
thought I was so, oh my God, like,
Why?
I'm like, I can't believe how great these actors are together, even in First Class. Like they are the strength of these films, and to have that kind of ending, I wanted I don't know what I wanted, but
to kiss.
more.
You want them to kiss.
Make out, like
Yeah.
not just a peck.
Finally.
No, I think
Like tongue.
I think
Yeah,
there's
let's
a kind of
go.
a simple beauty in that scene whereby that they're just going to play some chess, like because that's I like.
But I like that. I like that.
So what was
The dialogue?
the dialogue, the everything. It just.
Wait, you can't just say I like that. It's like everything didn't work.
No, I liked the bit where Eric, said we'll have one final game, but with his two fists out. There was a few things in there that were good, but like as I said, for how much I love these actors and how strong they are in films that I don't like as much as this one, that's such a shit way to end this saga.
I won't go so far as to say that it's a really shit way. I kind of enjoyed that moment. I like
unsatisfying.
Yeah, I disagree. I kind of liked that ending. Like I liked the simplicity of it.
I don't mind the simplicity. I don't mind like two of these characters
that's
having
fine,
a conversation, playing some chess. Like I would love that. They didn't need to be a fuck off action scene or something, or even a rescue scene. But you didn't get that joke.
No, I got it.
But it just I don't know. Did you think it was wimpy?
I was.
Specifically wimpy, not bad, wimpy.
I thought it was a little wussy. I don't know about wimpy.
Wussy, okay.
No, I'm not too fussed on it either way. It definitely should have been more, given what it represents for the series. I'm more interested in, I guess, Charles getting booted out of Jean Grey's school for gifted youngsters.
Yeah,
I thought he retired. I thought that was the point. He literally said, "How are you enjoying retirement?"
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe it was forced retirement. I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of people in Hollywood retire.
Yeah. I don't think the connotation was that he was booted. I think he would have left.
But so it was interesting. I just mean him leaving or his absence.
Yes. The only thing I will say that I don't like about that scene is that I don't like the setting. Like the French cafe seems a bit cliche to meet up with someone. But like, apart from that, I think that, it's fine.
Yeah, and then panning up to see the Phoenix, I was like, "Don't do it, Simon.
Yeah, there it is.
Don't." Oh man.
So onto some more specific nitpicks. Eric and Charles look great for guys in their 60s.
Dude, they both look jacked. It's weird, isn't it? For a guy that's in a wheelchair, he looks really good.
So Nick Holt is at least 50 years old in this film.
Wow.
Maybe mutants just age bloody well.
No, it's in the 90s, man. It was like the pollution and shit like that kicked in, and then by 2008 years later.
I mean, again, like continuity in this franchise is not.
I know, it's
really
always baffled me why they
one of
jump
the
ahead
other
by
things-
10 years every time.
One of the other things that kind of confused me is at the end of Days of Future Past, Wolverine comes, back to the school, right, and sees Jean Grey there.
Suppose it, but that's don't.
That's
I've already gone through
the
this with
original
you.
timeline, yeah.
I've gone through this with you, man. Like
That's what's confusing me.
Explain
that to me.
The way I took it, right, when I watched Days of Future Past the other day, was that erased the other timeline. So it's actually a singular timeline. There's no split offs.
Exactly.
But then when I spoke to you, Benny, it was like, oh, it splits off, and I don't actually think about it too much because it'll make your brain hurt.
Well, no, the point is that I think the way that the mechanics work is that it doesn't split off. It just erases that previous timeline.
In that film. In Days of Future Past, that's the mechanics. But
Exactly.
But for the
And
overall
so then-
franchise, it's a fuck around.
Well, that's my point, because you can't have him return to that single timeline and then have Jean Grey there, but then presumably earlier on in the timeline,
She's at
her
the end
killed.
of the film. She's flying around Paris.
Yeah,
She
good. I
just
take
comes
it back then. They're just going to go
yeah.
back to Days of Future and superimpose a phoenix, like, hello, and like move out of the doorway or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, like.
You will break your brain
Right,
trying to
yeah.
the idea that the X-Men's first mission was fighting Apocalypse, and that's just the rest of the movies follow that. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Like there was points in this where I was like, okay, well, so how does that, and what if Last Stand? Nah, George, just watch the movie. Do
Man,
not think about it.
I didn't do it at all. I literally went in watching this movie like Apocalypse did not happen. I completely ignored that ever existing. And as for connecting it to other movies, forget about it. Like, no, I didn't try to do it at all.
And
I normally love that shit.
In Apocalypse, ever explore the parentage of Quicksilver?
Yeah, that was a big plot point.
Yeah, but did they was there some kind of like, did he find out that Magneto's his dad?
Yeah, it was a big part of it.
Yeah, all right.
They never looked into Nightcrawler's parentage, who both of whose parents were in the last couple of movies.
Yeah, in First Class.
Not officially in the movies, but Azazel
Azazel, yeah.
and Mystique. But that's never.
Yeah,
addressed
no,
well.
it's very, very confusing for me because I like you, I've tried to erase most of that film.
Apocalypse, yeah.
Yeah. Because I knew that was they alluded to it at the very least. I was trying to remember at the end if they had actually.
You know, another thing that sucked about this that I thought was just really lazy, going on that. Oh no, let's not use sucked. Let's use laziness.
Blue.
This is 1992.
Yeah.
This did not feel
Was
like
it?
1992.
No, this was present day.
This felt like 2019.
Was it meant to be 1992?
Yeah, it came up with 1992.
Yeah, the flashback sequence was 1975 at the beginning, and then 1992. They may as well just not put any.
Yeah.
Like put a bit
What's
of
the
effort
point?
into it, man. Because like that's what I loved about First Class is like the 60s setting. It was actually a really cool component of it.
I'm glad it wasn't there. It would have been distracting.
No, man. Like he opens his little Matrix phone. You know, or maybe that's a little too early.
I really hated what they did in Apocalypse with it, with them going to see like Empire Strikes Back or something, and just the little thing, the fashion and the hair. I'm like, just don't bother. The continuity of these movies does not matter. The more they ignore it, the better.
Yeah, but don't do this 10-year thing then. Like just toss
Just-
that out.
Yeah,
No,
might as
I
well
would
been
love it.
present
I would
day.
love it if Apocalypse never happened. If First Class was in the 60s, Days of Future Past was, we can say 70s, sure. Then this one was just like 5 years after that or something.
Or a year after it. Well, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, like I just why did they do it ever? It's so weird.
And this it's so strange how they sort of sputtered through these films. Like you've got First Class, which is the reboots, which at the time they didn't actually say whether it was a reboot. Or is it a prequel? They didn't make it clear. And then they went into Days of Future Past where you're bringing in the old cast. So it's kind of like, okay, we've rebooted this, but now we're reverse engineering it and we're bringing it back. Then you had the fuckery of Apocalypse. And finally, this one, you actually get an X-Men mission. Like it's I wish this had come after First Class. Like I think it would have just smoothed things out. Obviously, you can't do it with all the Dark Phoenix from the last film and the timelines from Days of Future Past. But I think if this had been restructured in a more logical way, I would have enjoyed this little prequel.
I mean,
reboot,
if the overall franchise had been a
quadrology
little
or
bit more
whatever.
well thought out in general, I think we could have all benefited
That's a
from
very
that.
fair point.
But yeah, any other kind of
You got some more nitpicks?
specific things that you liked or
Could
didn't
I say
like?
something I really liked in this movie?
Yeah.
I thought the flying looked really cool.
Oh no, fuck you.
No,
Fuck you.
I really liked it.
Jean Grey?
Sorry?
Jean Grey's flying?
And Magneto. Because I thought...
I had to stifle a laugh every time she like
Yeah,
just
but
like went up into the sky.
I thought it really looked real. Like I thought it looked like what someone would look like if they flew away. What was interesting is it looked like it was practical, but it didn't look like they were being hitched up by their groin like it normally does when people
yeah,
are flying
yeah,
around
yeah.
and on wires.
Just
like
like-
when Magneto flew down from his little house,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that looks goofy, but it looks awesome at the same time.
Yeah, we had a little chuckle
Yeah.
when she went, me.
Yeah, so that's
Man
the
of
one
Steel.
that when she kills from
straight up.
that's
every other flying
That's
scene-
the one, yeah. But
Every
all
other
the
flying
ones,
scene, spot on.
yeah, I
agree
really
with you.
liked, yeah.
Oh, God, sorry, that
And the hair effects as well, how they swirled around. I thought that was
really
spot on.
subtle, just
very
enough.
cool. I liked that. Yeah,
Very
And
polished
there's
film.
A very cool scene when she's. It kind of starts when she's having to go at Magneto, but continues all right up to the climax of that scene when she's trying to kill Charles. I think I absolutely love the visualization of her power. How things just started to like crumble and disintegrate around her. I thought that was very cool.
X3, but
I mean,
it was cool in that too.
Yeah. Like I mean, that just because it was in X3 doesn't make it by definition bad.
No,
if it
but
ain't
it
broke,
is.
don't fix it.
And that movie is busted as fuck.
Let's bust it up.
Yeah, but I was one of the only points of distraction I had in this film, especially in concerns to the greater franchise, was where it chose to be the same as X3 and where
Yeah.
it diverged from it.
I get that.
So a lot of really little similar visual touches. I was like, it's an interesting choice. For them
Wolverine
to
just comes in the last scene and just guts
stabs her. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jean. Everyone's like, that fucking guy from that facility.
Oh my god.
That'd be a great payoff.
Yeah. Just a massive middle finger to the audience and then runs off screen.
Middle claw.
Yeah.
And one thing I really would have liked to see more of in this film as well, just briefly, is I would have liked one of these movies in 20 years. Not one of them has. I would have liked to see one movie develop Scott as a character a bit more, because I
More
think
than just a jock.
more than just Jane's guy who
Yeah.
has to get cuckolded by Wolverine eventually. I
He kind of
It's
loves
inevitable.
it though, you know?
you seem to it.
It's
Yeah,
kinda-
he's in the closet with his one eye.
Yeah, he's just like, this is hard. This is
Because I think that could have been really fertile ground for drama, you know, because
Yeah.
he is the closest person to her. And I do like what they did with it, what little they did with it. I would like to see more. One thing I really loved, and it's one of the main things that sold me on Jean's character, is after her first little explosion at the party, when she sees that she's injured him, her reaction I thought
Yeah.
was so wonderful. Really, like one of the
Love
most,
that line of him, you know, it's like, I know, and that's why I'm not taking you with me type thing. And she just puts him to sleep. I thought that was really cool.
That's
Yeah.
really effective, like script work and performance work.
Yeah,
You know, it's not like, oh, I hit you. Was that me?
yeah.
Oh, what's that on your face? Like it was just a little more subtle, but you knew exactly what was
It was
going
sold
on.
by her.
And it informed their relationship a lot.
Yeah, and kind of just a cool little using that really cliched saying "hurt people, hurt people."
Yeah.
Like, the way she broke down after she realized that she hurt him, I thought that was really cool.
Hurt people, hurt people. What's that from?
I don't know, it's a saying.
Is it from Life?
It's from life.
Oh,
yeah.
right. That,
In general,
fuck that.
things. He can
Forgot
say
that
things without
reference.
it being a quote. Ben only speaks in quotes from movies.
Correct.
It's like Bumblebee. One of the things that I thought was a bit... I'm always really cynical about these kinds of things in films. There was a comment in there done by Jennifer Lawrence about, us women are saving you men, and you rethink the word X-Men, and like that's it. Like that's all they have to say about it. And I was kind of like, that felt so shoehorned in there.
That was a weird one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
I
like,
like to think she'd just been listening to Spice Girls on the way in.
Yeah.
It's the 90s. It's the big girl power movement at the time. She was like,
Yeah.
yeah I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. This is the time.
that for me just kind of felt like the decision of someone in the scripting department or like the studio being like, we should get, women on our side, and there's nothing that women love more than a cursory, comment about how the naming is sexist,
Some
and then we'll just
pandering.
ignore it from there on in.
Yeah.
It's just like
The-
it
the-
felt so.
The Men in Black trailer beforehand has the same thing.
It is the exact same. But
And
I think that they
they're-
did that a little bit better because it's their interaction between two women where one kind of goes, "Yeah, I know, just like it's dumb," and they just kind of move on it with it that way. This one just felt like more of like an accusation, and then like leaving. You're like,
Weird coded of the scene as well. Like,
yeah, exactly.
not what anyone was talking about.
Yeah, but yeah, for that just didn't sit well with me. It was weird.
Hey.
What?
It's got his eye on you.
Yeah, I've got my eye on you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bit hammy, but I like the sentiment or whatever. Anyway, let's.
It's
move
not
on
an invalid
swiftly.
point. Yeah, it was
Let's
just,
move on
just
swiftly.
Yeah,
oddly
that's
inserted.
my point. It's not an invalid point. Why just just cursorily throw a stupid thing in there?
Yep.
Because it doesn't feel like they're genuinely trying to tackle it. It feels like someone was like, just trying to get
Throw a
brownie
line.
points.
How
Yeah.
about everyone's favorite New Mutant, Captain Dreadlocks?
Yep.
It was pretty good. Magneto's keeping some weird company now.
You know
Yeah.
what? I've always preferred it when they go for more of the realistic powers. Like when they put in Pyro or Iceman, I don't like those as much. As
Really?
more like Kitty or even Nightcrawler. Like if it's more tangible and more realistic, I
Like
respond
laser
a
beams
lot
from the
better.
eye.
I was just waiting. I was just going through
It's
all the superheroes.
strange, isn't it? Like the way I sort of put this together. But like for example, in First Class, those powers did very little for me. Like I didn't like them
Their
nearly as
selection
much.
of mutants in that movie's kind of sucked, though.
I love it when it feels like it's not that far off. This is a
I
possibility.
kind of like it more varied, though.
I think we'll go again with the laser beams from the eyes as a prime example.
Because, when you look at the comics, like, I kind of like it when they lean into that. Just like everyone has this insane gimmick.
Yeah.
This one thing that they can do that makes no sense.
Yeah. There were some that kind of do make sense, like people that are radioactive or something like that we've seen in the franchise so far, and you're like, that kind of feels a little bit more mechanical or something like that could happen. And then I absolutely love it because each movie has to have at least one that is absurd. And
like.
then,
you keep going.
then there's always that kind of reveal of what their power is. Like in this one, you meet up with him in the Magneto's free state, and you're like, I wonder what that guy does.
Yeah.
It's gonna be something weird. Like I just know it.
Yeah, I guess it's for me. I prefer a Wolverine style power versus like a Gambit. You can't make Gambit work very well. When it gets more comic booky, I don't like it as much. I don't like Dreadlock guy as much
Love
as
Gambit's powers.
as much as Magneto.
So silly.
Jean Grey, Magneto, like all these guys. It feels more real.
He's
and
what
that's why
everyone
I'm
have mind
responding better.
powers.
Huh?
He's what everyone
Just
ever had
everyone
mind powers.
mind.
Yeah, everyone's
in
a
the
psychic.
mind's eye. That's it.
Yeah.
And Wolverine. That's it.
Everyone's psychic, and then there's Wolverine. And some
Just stabbing
psychics,
everyone.
are just shitter than other psychics. Like Magneto, he can only do metal. And everyone else can do everything.
Yeah.
Somebody
But
can do
I
plastic.
think-
Somebody can do fabrics.
I do, in a sense, agree
Egyptian
with you
cotton.
in the sense that
Specifically,
there's
600
obviously
weave only.
it's Apocalypse, just Egyptian cotton.
Jesus. I think there is something valid in that, and is like there's obviously two camps of powers. Some that are not like mechanically or like that make more sense, but are a little less goofy. Like dreadlocks flying around is goofy,
bro.
whereas lasers shooting from your eyes is kind of cool. And I kind of get what you're saying. Like there's cool powers and then there's goofy powers.
Luck of the draw, like actually getting powers. I like that some powers
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of suck.
Yeah. Someone's, mutant power is that they can grow slightly longer fingernails than, someone else, or, that's, I think that
That's
who's
in
done that? Is
X2.
that like a Family Guy
X2.
episode about that or something?
Yes,
Doesn't matter.
probably.
Yeah, it's called Nightmare on Elm Street. Are we all done with this film? Because I've got one final question for you guys, or maybe two actually.
Shoot.
Go for it.
What or how? Why?
When?
What would be your mutant power if you were an
Ooh.
X-Men?
Okay.
We know you're one. Mind control in a little wheelchair.
I was about to say mind control. I mean, you just be Jean Grey, really.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
just
I mean,
kinda
I'd
got,
love
like,
to
the-
see you in that red wig.
Just kind of get the ultimate, like, she's just kind of like power. That's her power, is just power.
I would love to see you fly up into the sky and explode.
Connor just
That's
turned.
exactly how I would get around everywhere. Just
Yeah.
This is my fanboy answer is because I have a pair of fiberglass Wolverine claws at home that I made. I would really love those claws. They are so cool.
Yeah.
But is it about, because I would choose Wolverine as well, but is it about the claws or is it about the fact that he can heal? Because I always thought the healing thing was dope.
That's great, and you get to live a nice long life, but not immortal. That's cool. But I really want those claws.
Do you want
You take-
bony
you take
claws
that,
or do
I'll
you want
take the claws.
adamantium
Wait,
claws?
Adamantium, baby, shiny.
You don't want that bony, natural, organic
Gross.
shit?
Gross.
Come on, man.
Is Wolverine
authentic.
in the comics meant to be immortal? Like he just doesn't age at all as well?
No, I think it probably changed a lot over the years. I think they nailed it with that first movie where they just said he's very long lived.
Okay.
And
yeah,
has,
yeah.
you know, it
So I was
has
gonna
been
say, if he's
aging.
immortal, there's a like a common problem with being immortal is that eventually what will happen is you will get trapped. Like you won't die, but you'll either get like collapse building
Exactly,
or you'll
horrible.
like fall into the ocean and sink to the bottom.
That kind of happens to him though in X2, right?
Well, he conveniently
They're
gets
putting in
saved.
that
But yeah,
liquid
it would be
and he's
something
sort of
like that.
hardening. Or the other character, they defeat her
Yeah.
in that manner.
Lady Death
Yeah.
Strike or something.
Maybe.
But that
You know, that's
that
what
would be
happens.
my
I was trying to think of a
terrifying.
name.
That does
That
happen.
would really fuck with me. Like if I'm immortal, that
Yeah.
like the chances that you would arrive in some kind of situation in which you're not dead, but you just can't move anywhere.
If I lived a fantastic, wonderful life forever, that would be hell. I don't want that either. Okay, just give it a little longer would be cool though.
Final question. What do you
you
guys...
said it already.
Yeah, I said Wolvie. Magneto. I love Magneto. Anything metal based, as long as it's real.
You
As long
already
as
made
it's
fun of it, but I
tangible.
quite like Gambit's powers. I think they're cool.
I like Gambit was one of my favorites in the X-Men comics, but it's like in the cartoon. Sorry, I've never read a comic in my life other than Watchmen and Hellboy. Final question: what
Graphic
do you guys
novels.
want to see in the next iteration of X-Men? What's your top line? Couple of bullet points that you need to see from Disney's version and the X-Men now getting integrated into the MCU.
Yeah. I need Deadpool to remain the same.
Which
I need
is
it to
pretty
be
much confirmed. I think.
Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. I think that they should shy away from doing Magneto and Charles Xavier. I mean, it's a staple of the X-Men, but I just don't know how they're going to introduce those characters. It just feels... I mean, I'm sure they'll find some way, but like that to me, I think that they might want to take a risk and just not involve them.
It's getting harder and harder to have a Holocaust survivor as one of your main characters.
Yeah.
In terms of time passing.
Yeah,
from World War
exactly,
II.
right? Yeah. I think that they should go for some, kind of lesser known X-Men characters. And I think that should be how they build out the X-Men in the Marvel universe. And because that worked for them with their staple of
Certainly
characters.
did.
The main character Iron Man is not a main character in anyone's books. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment.
I go for the lesser known ones.
You got any bullet points, Benage?
Yeah, in terms
Vintage?
of practicality and not doing what we've seen before, I think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
But in terms of just X-Men being one of the very first comic book franchises I fell in love with, there's something about that like main roster, that kind of iconic roster, especially the 90s one, the one you look at it in the cartoon, that I really want to see that. And I want to see that exist in a stable way for like a series of films. Because I just don't think it's really been done. This X-Men franchise that's existed is so tumultuous, and like it's two franchises that kind of intermingle in weird ways with bizarre spin-offs, some that aren't meant to be in the same continuity necessarily. I don't know. I would like the stability of the MCU kind of applied to just
Totally.
the good stuff that's come before. How they would do it, I have no idea. I'm glad I don't have to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I would like them. I agree. I think you guys nailed it there.
Well, that's been our show.
Thanks, guys. It's been fantastic. No, the only thing I'll say is I want to see more of that comic bookiness of that 90s cartoon that I fell in love with. That, for me, is the original X-Men.
Yeah, when the MCU does Rogue, she should have super strength and fly. Like, because that's what it is in the comics, and that's fun, something we haven't seen before. We've done
The grounded one.
We've really grounded,
Yeah.
they're cursed outcasts kind of thing.
The
And as great as that
societal-
is,
yeah.
I don't really see the MCU doing it the same.
No.
Well, and again, it's really hard because it's this kind
The
of
mutants
allegorical
have
thing
existed.
of racism that's been there since the Holocaust type thing. So
And,
it's
yeah.
how do you translate that into a universe that doesn't have political intrigue with mutants.
Could you do something with like recontextualizing? So maybe it wasn't the Holocaust. Maybe it was, another event that happened at another
totally.
point in time,
You
and
could,
you could
but
give
it's-
him a different nationality. Like you could really explore it from a different angle, kind of like what they did with Shin Godzilla versus Godzilla. Like the same premise, but just flipped on its head and recontextualized a bit.
But
That
it
would
has
be
to
interesting.
exist in an already established universe. I think that's
yes.
the big problem. And, you can't just say that, they've been around for
Well,
a
you've
while.
had the
There's-
enhanced. You've had
Exactly. You've got the
Inhumans,
enhanced.
and all of those get completely ignored in the universe as well.
But
Like,
you could call. Listen, let's be honest with each other. It is a very easy way for them to go, "Hey, there's mutants. There's mutants cropping up." Like it's not.
Oh, no,
it's not a
like,
problem for them to
them
introduce that.
Introducing mutants from here on in is easy. I'm just saying it's not as easy to establish a world in which there are like
I
mutants and
disagree.
there's been
I
history.
think
you
one
could-
throwaway line, boom, and it's sorted.
you could
and there's
start.
mutants
You could
everywhere.
start really small.
Yeah.
And say that this is suddenly expanding very
Yeah,
quickly.
exactly. You
But you could
introduce
say you
mutants.
could have, not specifically, but for instance, you could have Charles Xavier and his school. They've been operating for 20 years really quietly. Everyone thinks it actually is just like a gifted boarding school.
Yeah,
He's
you
got
could-
a few students and some other people there. And then there's like an event or something that triggers a mass mutation, whatever.
Yeah, you could do something like that, I suppose.
There we have it, guys. Dark Phoenix, the finale. Listen,
Don't
listen up.
don't forget the New Mutants coming out, next year?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that's
wow.
enough of
if
that.
that ever comes out.
If we ever get to
Hold
see
them-
it.
Don't hold your breath. Guys, we're going to do a rankings episode of the X-Men franchise coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow on Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook. And we'll be back next week for the weekly movie show. Plus another review. And as always, I haven't brought up the schedule
Yeah.
to know what it is.
I
Well,
looked
he's
it up
doing
today
that.
and I've forgotten.
Guys, as always, let us know what you thought of the film because we're always really interested in other people's opinions of films, things that we've missed, things that, we didn't think about.
And once again, the worst reviewed X film of all time. So I really want to know what people think of this
well,
one.
yeah, because I think that we've been, equal parts critical and also quite generous to this film. So
Very generous, yeah.
very interested to see how that kind of plays.
We're in for Men in Black International next week.
No wonder I
fellas.
forgot.
Yep. And then Toy Story 4. Thanks, guys. We'll be back. See you, Connor.
Bye.
See you, Benji.
Bye.